What's up, guys? It is Corey from Super Comic Guru 9000, and welcome to my review of One Piece, episode 603. Pretty interesting episode here. You know, the second half was a little bit slower, but there was a little bit of stuff in the beginning of the episode that I thought was really awesome. First and foremost, a lot of this episode had to deal with the Straw Hats sort of breaking out of this cage, and all of the other members of the Straw Hat crew sort of coming together finally and making their way into this lab. But before we get to that, they tease us a little bit. We get to see that a lot of random pirates are still watching the presentation that Caesar Clown has set up. And, Killer doesn't really seem all that impressed, and neither does Eustace Kid. And that's where we finally get to see him in full for the very first time, and he looks as awesome as always. And then all of a sudden, it's like this Supernova reunion where we get to see that he's meeting up with both Scratchman Apu and frickin' Basil Hawkins. If you guys don't remember, these guys have some really crazy abilities. And the whole point of all of them meeting is that they're going to try and form an alliance. And that's all we get from this. You're not going to get anything else from that in this episode. We immediately move forward finally to the Straw Hats and seeing what they're doing. They're actually in that steel cage that's suspended above everyone. And essentially what's interesting here is they just sort of break out of nowhere. We get to see that Law immediately gets out, and he explains that he actually switched all of their chains with regular chains, and that ever since he's been on Punk Hazard, slowly but surely he's been changing all of the Sea Stone chains with regular ones. So they're all able to break out. Everything is good here. And then he uses Frankie to cause this giant distraction. This allows all of them to escape. What's also cool here is he's able to switch both Tashigi and Smoker back. And Law pretty much lays it on the line with Smoker. He's like, I'm letting you go for one important reason. You're not going to tell anybody about me and Joker. You're never going to mention it. You're never going to bring it up ever. This isn't something I'm doing as a favor. You're going to do this or I'm going to kill you. And thus, an unlikely alliance between Luffy, Smoker, and Law has sort of been formed here. And before the scene can actually be capped off, I just want to mention this before I forget it. It's really childish and really stupid, but I laughed my ass off when I saw Frankie fly off using one of his farts like a frickin' rocket pack. Just one of the dumbest but funniest things I've seen in the series. Speaking of ridiculous things, we finally go back to Zoro and his group who are running away from the giant gas cloud. And this is a really cool scene here. And it's also really funny because, of course, Sanji is still inside of Nami's body, and he gets an extra boost of speed by literally copping a feel and just running up on the dragon. They're all able to ride on it, but it's still not able to fly, and it's not really going any faster. Luckily, Brownbeard, Usopp, and Nami happen to be right above this cliff, and they see them, and they go down there to help them out. And ultimately, both teams join together, all jumping on Brownbeard's back, as he runs with the dragon literally biting onto his tail, causing him to run even faster. And this is what's great, is because, like I said, it all sort of culminates with everybody making their way into the lab. Since all the Straw Hats have finally escaped, Law has made his way in, and somehow they've opened up the giant gates, so all the Marines are able to make their way in. And even at the very end, you get to see the shutters are closing, and Brownbeard is running towards this giant gate, and it's about to close. So Zoro and kine'mon do this combination technique, which is really awesome. It really speaks a lot about kine'mon, and I think he's a really cool character. You know, he's really grown on me the more I've watched this arc. So now all of our heroes are finally safe. They're now inside. However, there is now a new problem. How are they going to seal the door? We're going to have to find out in the coming episodes. So there it is. It was a pretty good one. Really funny and pretty action-packed in terms of like the adventure aspect of it. That's what I always like about One Piece. Now that there's so many like main characters that have been introduced, they can really like move out and let them all kind of do their own thing. And yet they all sort of come together at the end, and I've always really enjoyed that. The big thing, of course, is going to be the alliance between Eustace, Scratchman, and Basil Hawkins, which I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know why they're trying to form an alliance. All I know is that's going to shake things up, I'm sure, much later. And it's obviously a big deal why they're appearing. But still, I loved a lot of the little funny moments this week, especially with Frankie. I thought it was really funny how they were able to just really easily escape from the chains and how sort of convenient it was for Law to do this. But still, they got to make their way inside somehow, and this is really the most logical way I can really see it maybe at this point. The bit at the end with kine'mon and Zoro is actually probably one of my favorite parts of the episode. Just a really cool moment. I love the way they animated it. And like I said, it really shows that kine'mon's a pretty badass swordsman in himself, even when compared to Zoro. So there it is. So if I'm going to give this episode a score, I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. It wasn't perfect. There were some moments I didn't enjoy, some moments they could have glanced over. But still, I thought this was a pretty decent quality episode of One Piece, which had some pretty good animation for the most part. Pretty good character artwork, and it was great finally getting to see everybody finally come into the building, come into the lab. So now things are really going to get underway, and we're going to get some fighting going. So that's obviously one of the fun things about One Piece. 8 out of 10 is the score this week. But how did you guys feel about this week's episode? Did you like it? Did you hate it? You can let me know with your comments below. And you guys know the drill by now. Before you leave, make sure and give this video a thumbs up. It's one of the best ways to support our videos. We'll see you next time, guys. Super Kami Guru 9000. Out.